Welcome back, Headliner Nation. Kyle with the Fantasy Headliners, and we're going to continue my breakdown of the top 100 players for fantasy football in 2020. And we're a channel of the people, so when you talk, we listen, and we've heard your feedback, and you wanted to see more players in each video. So that's what we are going to go ahead and do. So for this episode, we're going to run through numbers 51 through 69, and then we're going to do two more episodes after this. We'll do 26 through 50 and 1 through 25. So three more episodes to go, breaking down my top 100 players. Before we move on, just a reminder, it is June. It is still early. These rankings could change an awful lot between now and the start of the season. Okay, so we're probably going to go ahead and do more rankings episodes as we move forward. And I will continue to put the expert consensus ranking in with these videos so you can see where I stand compared to the ECR. So let's go ahead and talk about number 69. And I know you all wanted to see Gronk in this section. I already did Gronk earlier though, and instead of just putting him in here, I figured let's go ahead and actually put him where I think he'll land. So number 69 overall, Raheem Mostert. Raheem, not quite a must-start, okay? He might be a must-start this season. For me, though, I'm going to go ahead and put him at running back 26 right now. I'm only a couple of spots lower at the position than the ECR, and I like Mostert. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to have a fabulous season, okay? But a fully healthy Tevin Coleman is going to continue to see some looks in that offense. And just in the back of my mind, even though he hasn't done anything over the last couple of years, Jerick McKinnon is still there. They paid a lot of money to have him on that roster. If he's healthy, I'm sure they're going to try and get him on the field a little bit. This is a run-heavy scheme that likes to change the ball into other players' hands. So Mostert's not going to be a guy that is going to be consistently touching the ball. And I think it's also wise to just consider Jimmy Garoppolo is now an entire year removed from having a torn ACL and that surgery. So he's got a full healthy season under his belt now. And a lot of times with people in ACL injuries, it takes them that year to get back. So now that they've added another weapon in Brandon Ayuk, you might see them start to throw it a little bit more. Kyle Shanahan is an extremely smart coach, one of the best offensive minds in all of football. He might toss it around a little bit more, knowing that teams are prepared to come in and face the run week in and week out. So we'll see what happens with that. With Mostert, though, I'm going to have him back here right now just because, again, lots of people to give the ball to and possibly throwing it a little bit more. Moving on to my running back 25, David Montgomery. An awful season last year, but I definitely think he is one of my breakout candidates. The big thing for David Montgomery is he's going to need some volume. David Montgomery is not a bad running back in any way, shape, or form. However, last year you saw a lot of up and down usage of him. You might see, 16 carries one game down to 8 the next. It went up and down so much. And when you've got a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky that is extremely inefficient and all over the place, it can make things a little bit easier for David Montgomery to have the box stacked against him and have defenders queue on the run a little bit more. So he made some good moves. If you watch tape of David Montgomery from last year, he looked really, really good at times. However, sometimes he was just so suffocated in the run game, he couldn't do anything about it. There was defenders everywhere. I break down David Montgomery in our draft guide. He's one of my breakout candidates for this year. Make sure you pre-order that, and you'll be able to see more about David Montgomery. Number 67, one of my sleepers from last year that I absolutely hit on, Darius Slayton himself from the New York Giants. I told you all in the middle of the summer, keep an eye on Darius Slayton. If you listened and you grabbed him, congratulations. You got a guy that helped you out. I am still high on him this year. I have him 10 spots higher in the ECR at wide receiver than what the ECR does. So I've got him at wide receiver 31. The expert consensus ranking puts him at wide receiver 41. Really high on Darius Slayton. I love this offense. I think it has all of the tools. It's got guys that can win in the middle of the field. It's got guys that can win deep. They've got a dynamic running back that can do anything when he touches the football, whether it be on the ground or through the air. They have weapons all over the place. Darius Slayton is going to have some huge plays this year. He is going to have some huge plays. Yes, he might be a little risky at times, but I absolutely think he is going to have some big plays, and he's going to be a guy that's going to win down the field consistently. Number 66, my wide receiver 30, a couple of spots lower on A.J. Green than the ECR. I like A.J. Green. I'm just being cautious with it. I don't think he is a top 12 wide receiver anymore. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. They have a rookie quarterback. They have a running back that can shoulder the workload there, and they have other weapons around him. I don't think they're going to have to rely on A.J. Green being the guy every single play in Cincinnati now. However, if he is healthy, he should absolutely easily return his value for where he's going in drafts currently. So keep an eye on him. I definitely think he's going to be a guy that will be a safe wide receiver 3 week in and week out with a lot of high wide receiver 2 upside on certain weeks. Grab him in drafts if you can at the right price, and he will probably pretty easily return his value, even if it's not the A.J. Green of old. At number 65, DJ Chark. I'm not going to sing the song. Don't worry about it, ladies and gentlemen. But DJ Chark is a guy that I'm just not very high on. He's also in our draft guide. I've got him listed as a bust this year. I am very concerned with DJ Chark and what we saw from him last year. There were glimpses. He had a good overall season. But take a look at the draft guide if you've ordered it. If you haven't, order that, and you'll see why DJ Chark is a risk for me this year. I've got him at wide receiver 29, just a little bit lower than the ECR. At number 64, Le'Veon Bell, my running back 24. I mean, really anything in New York this year I'm staying away from except for Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder, I want all the Jamison Crowder I can possibly get. But with Le'Veon Bell, Jake just did a Backfields to Avoid episode. The Jets are one of mine. I'm not interested in owning a Le'Veon Bell. I think he could reach running back 24 status and be a running back 2 based on volume alone, and he's probably going to have to get some work in the passing game because their wide receivers on the outside of Rashad Perryman and Denzel Mims just aren't guys that I'm ready to commit to yet. We've got to have a lot of volume, though. He's just not the same efficient Le'Veon Bell. He is getting older. He's reaching a time in his career where running backs start to decline greatly. And being on a bad offense, being with a head coach that doesn't know how to utilize you, if you don't get the volume and you're not nearly as efficient, you're going to have some rough weeks. At number 63, I have got Mark Ingram as my running back 23. I am 5 spots lower on him right now, one of my lower running backs in the ECR, and I like Mark Ingram. Last year, when we talked about Mark Ingram, we listed him as a must-have. We told people to get Mark Ingram. Where he was going in drafts was criminal, and he absolutely returned that value for you last year. But with all things considered this year, I think we're going to see a step forward in the passing game from Lamar Jackson. Marquise Brown, I've talked about him on the channel already. I think he takes a step forward, has a fully healthy season. They have added some weapons at wide receiver for him. I think that we're going to see, again, a lot of runs, but Mark Ingram isn't the guy that has to shoulder the load anymore. And we saw it last year. Mark Ingram is absolutely fine. And while he was in New Orleans, he's absolutely fine playing that type of a role. He doesn't need to be the lead back. He doesn't necessarily want to have the light on him at all times. He just wants to win football games and play football. And those are the type of guys you love to have on your team. But from a fantasy football standpoint, I definitely think we see J.K. Dobbins this year. 100% think that we see more of Justice Hill as well. And don't forget, Gus Edwards is also still there. They've already said these 4 guys, they are going to use them a lot. They can shift them in and out, move them around consistently. If that happens, Mark Ingram just isn't going to get the same amount of workload he had as of last year. There's some running backs that I like up above him right now. Nothing against him. I think he can be a safe pick for you if you take him as your running back 2. Especially if you go like wide receiver heavy to start. Maybe you take a running back 1 and then go wide receiver and tight end, and then you go with a guy like Mark Ingram. I'm just not interested in having him as my running back 1 this year. Moving on to number 62, a guy that I'm really high on, Brandin Cooks, 11 spots higher in the ECR at wide receiver because honestly, I just love the upside. And when I do a lot of my rankings, I really rank guys based on upside. I want guys with a whole lot of upside, and Brandin Cooks has that. Yes, he's going to be a guy that's going to be a concern because He's had a lot of concussions, okay? He seems to get knocked out of games quite frequently. He's one bad hit away from maybe being done with his career. I don't want to over-exaggerate there, but you always want to be careful with things like that. But Brandin Cooks is moving to a new team that just lost their number one wide receiver, and he's going to have an opportunity because Brandin Cooks just isn't that speedster that has to win down the field, okay? That can be Will Fuller. Brandin Cooks has showed us that he is the type of wide receiver that can win all over the field. And don't forget, he's played for new teams before, and he has produced. He produced with his first and only year in New England, and he produced his first year in LA. So I've got no issues with Brandin Cooks coming into a new team. He's shown he's been able to pick up the playbook quickly. He's been able to develop chemistry with his quarterback quickly. And because of that, I think that he is a guy that absolutely can finish as a high wide receiver 3, but even then I think he has more ceiling than that and can go even higher. So Brandin Cooks is a guy that I'm 100% investing in all offseason long. Number 61, Stefon Diggs. I am a little bit worried about Stefon Diggs because I think Stefon Diggs and John Brown are a little bit too similar in the role that they've played on their teams before. Stefon Diggs has been that big play guy, that deep threat, the guy that can take the ball to the house every single time. Isn't that right, Saints fans? And because of that, I think him and John Brown play a little bit too much of a similar role, and Stefon Diggs might have to adjust himself a little bit in terms of expanding that route tree and just running more of those routes more consistently. I don't think he ran all of the route tree consistently in Minnesota. I think he's going to have to do that a little bit more in Buffalo, and that is why. And I'm still worried about some of that mid-range accuracy with Josh Allen. I like Josh Allen. I really do, especially in fantasy football. I've come around on him a lot since he was drafted. I did not like him when he was drafted, but he has shown to be taking those steps forward. Can he do it again? If he can, then yeah, Stefon Diggs goes a little bit higher for me. I just think he's going to be a little bit too overdrafted this season. Number 60, Zach Ertz, my tight end 5. One spot lower in the ECR right now at tight end. I just think with Zach Ertz, he's been so volume driven that he just has to have a lot of volume to produce. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at tight end, but will he have that volume again this season? Dallas Goedert is a guy that he's such a good weapon, but it just seems like that they haven't been using him as much as they possibly could. So do they run more 2 tight end sets this year? If they do, then that right there could end up hurting Zach Ertz if he's got Dallas Goedert on the field with him more often this season. And then also they've drafted my boy Jalen Reagor. I absolutely love Jalen Reagor. So now they're going to have another offensive weapon. They've added Marquise Goodwin to the roster as well. Deshaun Jackson. Can Deshaun Jackson be healthy all season long? Carson Wentz. They just lost another offensive lineman. Jason Peters hasn't been re-signed. Lots of question marks about the Philadelphia offense, and that is one of the reasons that I'm a little bit lower right now is because I have those concerns. At number 59, my running back 2, Kareem Hunt. I posted this. Somebody else on Twitter had wrote, if Nick Chubb wasn't in Cleveland, Kareem Hunt would be his 1.03. If Kareem Hunt wasn't in Cleveland, Nick Chubb would be my 1.03. Absolutely love these 2 running backs. They can be effective together, though, and don't worry, I'm going to have more information coming on this backfield because if Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas can all survive together and be top fantasy options, then there is no reason Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, and Odell Beckham Jr. can't do the same thing. Yes, the difference between Drew Brees and Baker Mayfield is a big difference, but Baker Mayfield is going to take another step forward for me this year. The bake sale, okay, you're going to be able to continue to get him at that sale price, but this is going to be the year. He's going to break out. He's going to be the quarterback that they drafted first overall. Number 58, T.Y. Hilton, my wide receiver 26. Down a couple of spots on him. He absolutely has a prime opportunity this year to come back, be healthy, get on the field, work with Phillip Rivers. He's going to be that number 1 target, but he's got to be healthy. And that's part of my concern with him. And do they run the ball more often? Now they've got Jonathan Taylor. They have Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines. Do they work in the passing game a little bit more? Phillip Rivers has been known to really target his tight ends quite a bit. So is Jack Doyle going to be kind of that number 2 option? All those things considered, T.Y. Hilton might just not have the ceiling that he used to. And number 57, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, CEH, out of Kansas City. Lots of people are really excited about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I get it. I like him. I like CEH. I've got nothing against him. Ladies and gentlemen, Damien Williams is still is still in Kansas City. Right now, I am 4 spots higher than the ECR right now than I've got him at running back 21. Everyone else has got him 4 spots lower. It's odd because I think CEH is the one guy that's got a ton of room to spare this year. And that's why I'm 4 spots higher, is because a lot of people have got him a lot lower, but there's a lot of people that got him a lot higher. Some people think he's a high-end running back 2 this year, and a running back 1 on most weeks. When you're an offense like Kansas City, it gets you excited. But I've got a video dropping either tomorrow or over the next couple of days talking about guys that could be overdrafted this season. Keep an eye out for that video because CEH is going to be brought up. Number 56, Melvin Gordon, my running back 20, a little bit lower on him. I just think it's going to take some adjusting for Melvin Gordon. He's moving from being at sea level in LA to now being up in the mountains. It concerns me that he's going to have a rough time going into Denver consistently, having to train there, play there. He's an athlete, all right? He's one of the best athletes in the world. He plays in the National Football League for a reason. However, that can be a drastic switch for players who have spent their career in one area their entire lives, and now you got to go out and you got to consistently pound the football on the ground. Phillip Lindsay is there, so I think Phillip Lindsay probably knocks him down a little bit in the passing game. I don't think Melvin Gordon will be used in the passing game nearly as much as what Lindsay might. But with Melvin Gordon, I like him. I just would rather take him as more of a low-end running back 2 than think that he's going to produce anything that he is used to doing. And don't forget as well, they've got a lot of weapons now in Denver. So the passing game work might limit his upside. He's got to have the volume, and he's got to be a little bit more efficient with the volume than he has in his past. He's got one really efficient season, and then out of the rest of them, it was really more of just getting him as much volume as possible. Number 55, Tyler Lockett. We like Tyler Lockett around here. This year, he's going to be moving to more of a boom or bust. The connection between him and Russell Wilson was highly efficient last year. When these guys connected, it was on a consistent level. So that's one of those things with Tyler Lockett. I'm just worried about the consistency with DK Metcalf being there still. Moving on to number 54, my quarterback 7, Drew Brees. I'm a spot higher on him, and honestly, when I did my rankings, I was surprised that I was a spot higher on him than the ECR. I figured he would be more along the quarterback 5 area, and I like Drew Brees this year 100%. Having him at quarterback 7, I think I'm going to get some people responding, maybe even Saints fans saying, how can you do that? He's got more weapons now with Emmanuel Sanders and obviously Michael Thomas, Jared Cook the second year. The guys that I have in front of him, and you'll see them coming up here soon, the guys that I have in front of Drew Brees are the guys that are those dual threat quarterbacks that are going to pick up a lot of yards on the ground and touchdowns on the ground as well. So that's why I've just got him a little bit lower, is because you're just not going to see some of that dual threat upside from Drew Brees that you're going to see from some of those other guys. So still like him, just a spot higher on him, but I really think he's going to be in for a good season here, what could possibly be his last season. If they can get a good year going, get to the Super Bowl, possibly win it, I think we're going to see Drew Brees right off into the sunset here pretty soon. Number 53, Jarvis Landry, my wide receiver, 24. He is still dealing with offseason surgery. When's he going to be ready? I'm not sure, but I am 6 spots higher on him right now, and I will absolutely take him in his current ADP. As we get closer to the season, if we find out he's not going to be nearly as healthy, we're going to have to start dropping him a little bit more. And we also need to be careful as well with the run game this year. If they are going to run the ball more often, if Austin Hooper is going to be used more often, all of these things within it, you got to be very careful with him this year. You don't want to overdraft him expecting the numbers that you saw last year. Even with that being said, I am a little bit higher than the ECR, 6 spots higher. I've got him at wide receiver 24. 52 overall, Terry McLaurin out of Washington. Number 23 wide receiver, 4 spots higher than the ECR. I love myself some Terry McLaurin this year. Very excited to see what he can do. I am going to continue to move him up draft boards, though. Ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye on him because he could end up finishing a little bit higher than what I even have him right now, and I could get him a little bit more into that mid-range wide receiver 2 upside. And then finishing it off today, number 51, DeVante Parker, my wide receiver, 22. He is one guy that I'm really concerned about. I've talked about him on our live shows. I've talked about him on other things as well. I don't love DeVante Parker this year, and quite honestly, by the time we get to the season, it's going to depend on Preston Williams. If Preston Williams is healthy, more than likely DeVante Parker drops even lower for me, and I put a guy like Terry McLaurin over him because I think DeVante Parker's upside could take a huge hit, and all of that volume he saw towards the end of last year, I think you could see it move away from him a little bit. So I am a little bit worried about DeVante Parker this year, and that his breakout from last year will end up carrying over. Well, there you have it, Headliner Nation. My top almost top 100, getting all the way through it here, getting really close, going through number 51 today. Got a couple of more shows to go. Going to do my top 25, and then we're going to do 26 through 50 as well after that, and then we'll be all the way through that. We've got a lot of great content coming in. Don't forget our draft guide available for pre-order right now. It's going to be dropping very, 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 very soon. I don't have the specific date, but it will be well ahead of what we had planned by the end of June. So get ready to be able to dive in and look at that information. Headliner Nation, thanks for tuning into this rankings video. Stay safe, stay healthy, hit that subscribe button, comment below, like the video, all the good stuff, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Have a good one.